Welcome to Oliveboard. So let's begin with today's session on IFSCA. But before moving any further, I just want to ask you if I'm audible and visible. If anything is okay, voice. Let me see if voice is problem. Just a minute. No, I think voice is fine. Now tell me if still the problem is there, and now I feel everything should be okay, right? So I have already taken one session where we discussed about the basics of IFSC. So in this session we are going to deal with a lot more than that. First of all, we are going to do I will not be straight away jumping to the MCQs because many of you have never ever read about this IIBX and all. So छोटी सी history देख लेते हैं, and then we are going to move ahead. When I talk about IIBX, so it's India International Bullion Exchange, IFSC Limited. India's bullion market is one of the largest in the world, and it holds an important position in the global bullion market. International Bullion Exchange, it paved a way for India to play a larger role in the global bullion market because after all, we wanted to have a bullion market of our own. So IIBX is one such product which honored our commitment. 29th of July 2022 was the first time when we had launched this. Our Prime Minister launched it. IIBX, it's promoted by India's leading market infrastructure institutions like your NSE, India INX, which is a subsidiary of BSE, yes. You have depositories as well like your NSDL, CDSL, because after all, when you are having this bullion, तो कहीं तो deposit करना होगा ना, because after all these bullions, they are in the demat form. तो कहाँ करोगे? You have depositories as well, and then you have MCX. IRBX, it's established at again your gift city, which is Gandhinagar, Gujarat. It's regulated by IFSCA. So IFSC is the apex body which is looking forward to your whole IIBX system. You have at one place IIBX, which actually interacts with your trading member. Then you have clearing centers where you have your clearing members and the clients who are actually talking with them. You also have IIDI. What is this? It is India International Depository IFSC Limited. So here there is a bullion depository which is there, wherein you will be allotted an empaneled vault. This vault will have an address. So all those who are keeping their this bullions over here, they are going to have this vault number with them. When I talk about this IIBX IFSC Limited, it has been conceptualized to provide a gateway to import bullion into India and to provide a world-class bullion exchange ecosystem, to promote bullion trading, to promote investment in bullion financial products and vaulting facilities in IFSC. IIBX enables trading in bullion which adheres to OECD's due diligence, because after all, this organization actually looked forward towards controlling money laundering and terror financing. And with these minerals being transported from one country to another in this bullion exchange altogether, there is very high risk of spillover of this money laundering, terror financing and all. And that's why this bullion exchange was being reinstated. It creates a responsible supply chain of minerals from conflict affected high risk areas for establishing supply chain integrity. For the first time, an Indian resident jeweler, also known as a qualified jeweler, can import bullion directly into India. Abhi tak kaise ho raha tha? So till now, your RBI or your SEBI, banks which are regulated by RBI or SEBI, the capital market regulator, so it was done via an intermediary that is there. But now it can be done directly. So this actually creates a lot of ease. Top bullion dealers and the jewelers of India, they have onboarded by IIBX with many more applications in the pipeline that are still going on. Bullion is kept in the vaults which are authorized by IFSCA and empaneled by IIDI that we have just seen, India International Depository IFSC Limited. It actually empanels a vault. Bullion on IIBX, it's traded in the form of bullion depository receipt, What is the process of this receipt? So depositor, they deposit bullion with the addition vault and vault manager. Then you have, it ensures completion of documentation. On verification, the depositor, they can issue bullion depository receipt in demat form again. And these bullion, they are a BDR number, which will become very easy for you to trade. Not only this, the demat account, it's required to be opened with the IIDI, where BDRs will be credited. The global bullion banks, the bullion refiners, and the bullion traders, through IIBX, they directly access the bullion buyers, or jisko bhi kharidna hota hai, directly you can talk to the buyers, and there how the process of trading goes on. Gift IFSC, it offers convenience to re-export the bullion as well. मान लो आपने import किया था, अब वापस से भेजना है, you can re-export as well. And just remember one thing, when required by bullion suppliers, without the payment of custom duty, तो custom duty भी देने की जरूरत नहीं है. So that's a win-win situation, wherein less burden would be there of these bullion exchanges. तो custom duty का कोई burden भी नहीं होगा. When I talk about the objectives, so ये क्यों किया गया था? So objective was very simple. It became the Asia's largest trading hub for bullion. It is aimed to focus across bullion ecosystem. A state-of-art digital platform for global trade, robust data and risk management. When I talk about this IIBX ecosystem, it will be a channel for bullion trading at international level and will put India at a global map. A world-class vaulting facility is available so that transparency is maintained. The investors' confidence is there. The settlement over here happens in US dollar because अगर आपको settlement INR में करना था तो फिर domestic market में कर लो, वहाँ क्यों जा रहे हो? 1-to-1 congruence of bullion DR, bullion depository receipt with respective bullion bars is there. For supply chain integrity is being maintained, international suppliers, क्योंकि एक single platform है, तो proper channel is already there. The nodal point for global bullion trade, this IIBX is actually providing. It provides a well-connected network which have logistics, transportation and warehousing facility. क्योंकि vault भी है यहाँ पे, तो warehouse भी है, logistic facility भी है, transportation facility भी है. Transparent electronic medium है, which you are utilizing via demat account and all. Disintermediation है, अब आपको banks की जरूरत नहीं है. So qualified jewelers, they can import bullion directly through IIBX. Banks के पास जाने की या किसी और broker के पास जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. Directly you can trade. Democratic pricing है, same prices is available to all the qualified jewelers because after all जो भी trade हो रहा है that is happening on board, so bid time सब कुछ it's all there in the public. Due to economies of scale and immediate value realization, price advantage is definitely there for these qualified jewelers. Now a very simple question. Tell me, when was IIBX launched? In which year was it launched? So IIBX was launched on 29th of July 2022. This was the year in which IIBX was launched. Moving ahead, when I talk about these IFBC's banking units, where are these regulations being placed? So it is placed in IFSCA Banking Regulations 2020. The new IFSC regulation supersedes the earlier RBI IBU guidelines. Because पहले हमारे पास IBU guidelines थी, now we have IFSCA के हिसाब से दी हुई guidelines. Indian and foreign banks, they can set up an IBU as a branch. Indian banks include any bank formed under any act and a subsidiary of foreign bank incorporated in India, but who cannot be a part. Cooperative banks are excluded. Foreign banks not having a presence in India may also be permitted to set up a branch, set up an IBU over here. अगर कोई foreign bank इंडिया में नहीं भी है तो भी वो यहाँ पे आके अपनी subsidiary they can open. The parent bank, they must satisfy the following conditions. What are these? Provide necessary capital to the IBU. Minimum requirement of this capital is $20 billion or as specified by IFSCA time to time. This is to be maintained by the parent bank. नो ऑब्जेक्शन सर्टिफिकेट फ्रॉम द होम रेगुलेटर. मान लो कोई यूएस का बैंक है, इट इज कमिंग इनटू दिस आईएफएससी एंड ऑपरेटिंग अ ब्रांच, तो यूएस से टेक अ सर्टिफिकेट, नो ऑब्जेक्शन सर्टिफिकेट. Submit an undertaking to provide liquidity to IBU. IFSCA regulations were recently liberalized to enable IBUs to provide wide spectrum of activities now aligned with those which are permitted under RBI Banking Regulation Act of 1949. Up till now, जो भी services that were provided by this banking system, they were very skewed. But later on, they were liberalized because after all, ये banks यहाँ पे क्यों खुल रहे हैं? They are opening over here for having benefits, profit maximization. So commercial banking was allowed. Your external commercial trade financing, factoring services, guarantee, indemnity business, all these businesses were allowed. Private banking were allowed, जैसे structured deposits हो गए, mutual fund units हो गए, and all those. Capital market divisions भी, they were allowed to maintain trading member of stock exchanges on this exchange traded platform and all. इसके अलावा और भी सर्विसेज जैसे अंडर राइटिंग की सर्विस हो गई, कस्टोडियन सर्विसेज हो गई, ट्रस्टीशिप है, या फिर इन्वेस्टमेंट स्कीम्स प्रोवाइड करना, या फिर गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटीज की रिटेल में, जैसे हम सॉवरेन ग्रीन बॉन्ड्स अगर हम आईएफएससी यूनिट से परचेज करना चाहते हैं, देन दीज बैंकिंग यूनिट्स आर आल्सो इन्वॉल्वड इन दैट. सो दिस बेसिकली a wide variety of services these IFSC banking units are actually dealing into. This made it easier for these all these banking systems to develop and give a wide range of products, thereby earning a lot of profit. If I talk about the prudential requirements, अब इनकी भी कुछ prudential requirements होगी, जैसे they have to maintain a ratio. What it is? IBUs to maintain a liquidity coverage ratio at the IBU level. These ratios will be maintained at the parent level with IFSC's permission. IBU level मतलब parent bank कुछ भी maintain करे, इस unit के अंदर specific LCR ratio needs to be maintained. The leverage ratio to be maintained by the parent bank at the level specified by the home regulator and subject to the regulations applicable to the parent bank. तो अगर parent bank की कुछ regulatory requirements है of the home regulator, तो वो भी they have to definitely maintain. With respect to exposure, IBU shall adhere to norms and guidelines which is related to exposure ceiling as may be specified. And with respect to reserve requirements, जैसे हम normally we maintain the CRR SLR. So the liabilities of IBU, they are exempt from SLR and CRR requirement. IBUs to maintain a retail deposit reserve ratio on a daily basis at 3% of the deposit, which is raised by by these qualified institutions and all, and outstanding as on end of previous working day. तो यहाँ पे CRR SLR का रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है, यहाँ पे रिटेल डिपॉजिट रिजर्व रेशियो का रिक्वायरमेंट है, दैट इज ऑफ 3%. Now what about the taxing of this? So 100% tax exemption for 10 consecutive years out of the first 15 years of IBU's choice. तो पहले 15 साल में IBU जब चाहे तो 10 साल back to back they can take 100% tax exemption. Tax regime for investment division of OBU, where OBU commences operations before 31st of March 2024. Capital gain tax 10% of LTCG, 15%, 30% for STCG. Capital gains, it's exempted. Dividend and interest income 10%. Business income from a securitization trust, it's exempted from any income tax. Offshore securities भी अगर if they are trading in, तो वहाँ पे भी कोई income tax it's not applicable. With respect to eligibility conditions to set up a insurance or a reinsurance office, so as I have told you, IFSC में आपके सारे तरह के product है, आपके banking product है, आपके capital market product है, in fact insurance product भी है, pension product भी है. So what about these insurance or the reinsurance products? So that's also allowed. But then one thing has to be kept in mind is जो भी पैसा आ रहा है that should not be utilized for money laundering or terror financing. That has to be kept in check. Fit and proper criteria to be maintained for the professionals who are actually dealing with all these things. Indian insurer or reinsurer, foreign insurer or reinsurer, या फिर branch office or foreign insurer, या फिर कुछ भी इस तरह की चीज है, then they have to meet some eligibility requirements as decided by IFSCA. Not only this, a body incorporated outside India, not being the nature of a private company, desirous to set up a business in IFSC, they also have to meet certain requirements of net worth and all. But then when I talk about this financing company, जो भी finance company होती है which are there in this IFSCA, ये होती क्या है? As per their circular ना, which of the following is not permissible for a finance company? तो 5-6 options थे in your PYQs wherein you had to select which is not allowed. So accepting public deposits from a non-resident, it is what the answer was out of the 5 options. But let's first see a financial unit होती क्या है या फिर finance unit क्या है. These finance unit, they refer to a financial institutions as defined under clause C of subsection of section 3 of the Act, which is set up a branch to deal in one or more permissible activity provided in the regulation. It does not accept public deposit from resident or the non-resident. It is not registered with the authority as a banking unit. An applicant intending to set up a FU for undertaking core activities shall fulfill the following criteria. First thing, it shall be incorporated entity into the home jurisdiction. It shall be engaged in the business of financial services. It shall be regulated by a financial sector regulator in its home jurisdiction. It shall obtain a no objection certificate from the home regulator, as whatever we have discussed. What are the non-core activities that can be undertaken by these FUs? Then they can operating lease on any product, including the aircraft lease, ship lease, or any other equipment that the IFSC authorities specify. Any permissible activity without involving a customer interface, जैसे catering solely to the group entities, जैसे कि holding companies and all. Setting up of international trade financing services platform. Lastly, undertaking to act as facilitators or permissible activities as and when permitted by authority. So all in all, these are non-core activities. Financing activity के अलावा what all activities they can take? This is what is written. What are the non-core activities that can be undertaken on additional activity along with core or non-core? और क्या कर सकते हैं? ये इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजरी सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड कर सकते हैं, पोर्टफोलियो मैनेजमेंट सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड कर सकते हैं, या फिर फाइनेंशियल प्रोडक्ट्स आल्सो दे कैन डिस्ट्रीब्यूट. दैट डिपेंड्स. नाउ दिस इज द क्वेश्चन फॉर यू. इफ अ फाइनेंस कंपनी इज अंडरटेकिंग कोर एक्टिविटीज, व्हाट इज द मिनिमम नेट ओन्ड फंड रिक्वायरमेंट फॉर दैट कंपनी टू सेट अप? देखो, अगर कोई फाइनेंस कंपनी है जो कोर एक्टिविटीज प्रोवाइड कर रही है, in that case, what is the minimum requirement of fund that they have to keep or they have to maintain? Tell me what could be the answer. So in this case, it is higher of $3 million or any amount which is required for non-core activity that has to be maintained. Now let's have a look. So this is again an excerpt from one of the regulation of IFSCA. पूरा regulation तो मुझे important नहीं लगा, but yes, certain portion of it I found it is important. Like undertaking one or more non-core activity, higher of $0.2 million अगर non-core activity है, or any such amount may be required to seek a specific registration. Any higher amount which may be authorized by the authority. तो मतलब IFSCA 0.2 million से ऊपर भी चाहे तो भी authorize कर सकती है. This is for non-core, जिसमें core activity involved नहीं है. If in case core activity involved है, then $3 million minimum regulatory capital for core activities, या फिर अगर IFSCA चाहे तो इससे ऊपर भी मैंडेट कर सकती है, बट डेफिनेटली 3 मिलियन से तो ऊपर ही रहेगा. नाउ अगर कोई ग्लोबल रीजनल कॉर्पोरेट ट्रेजरी सेंटर है, in that case it is higher of 0.2 million or any such amount as may be prescribed under the relevant regulatory framework. And remember one thing, अगर IFSCA अथॉरिटी ऑल टुगेदर चाहे तो इससे ज्यादा भी सेट कर सकती है. दैट डिपेंड्स. सो फॉर नॉन कोर इट इज $0.2 million. फॉर कोर वन और मोर कोर एक्टिविटी इट्स 3. फॉर ग्लोबल और द रीजनल कॉर्पोरेट ट्रेजरी सेंटर्स इट इज $0.2 million अगेन. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. You please go through the question, read the question and tell me what could be the answer. The question says, which of the following statement is correct? So you have to choose the correct statement regarding the operation of banks in an international financial service center in India. Indian and foreign banks already having a presence in India, they are permitted to set up their IBU IFSC banking unit? Yes or no? Banks do not need prior permission from RBI to set up an IBU. The minimum capital requirement for IBU is US dollar 20 million, 50 million, sorry, which must be maintained at all times. Foreign banks operating IBUs must submit a certificate of compliance to the RBI on an annual basis. The fifth option is Indian banks must provide a letter of comfort to the IBUs, to their IBUs. Tell me yes or no. Which of the following statement is correct? Okay, so let's have a look at what is wrong in the first statement. First of all, Indian and foreign banks, yes, they can set up their presence in IBU, IFSC banking unit. अगर कोई फॉरेन बैंक इंडिया में नहीं भी है तो भी वो आईबीयू में अपने बैंकिंग स्टेटमेंट स्टार्ट कर सकता है. बट जो उसका पेरेंट बैंक है सबसे पहले उसे रेगुलेटरी अप्रूवल लेना होगा अपने होम कंट्री का, दैट इज मस्ट. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट उसको जो मिनिमम कैपिटल रिक्वायरमेंट है उसको फुलफिल करना होगा और लेटर ऑफ कंफर्ट प्रोवाइड करना होगा टू देयर आईबीयूज दैट एट ईच पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम दे विल हेल्प देम इन प्रोवाइडिंग द लिक्विडिटी कवरेज रेशो एंड अदर सच प्रोविजंस व्हिच आर मेड अवेलेबल बाय योर आईएफएससीए. तो इंडियन बैंक्स को ये प्रोवाइड करने की जरूरत नहीं है. इट्स ओनली बाय द फॉरेन बैंक्स. They have to provide the IBUs with this letter of comfort. So therefore option number 5 stands incorrect. The banks do not need a prior permission for RBI. ऐसा नहीं है. Banks need a prior permission from RBI as well. The minimum capital requirement for IBUs to be opened and to be maintained at all times, it's not US dollar 50 million. Can you please tell me, we have just read what is the minimum capital requirement that is there. The fourth statement stands that foreign banks operating IBUs must submit a certificate of compliance not to the RBI but to the IFSCA and their parent organization from wherever they are coming from. तो RBI का यहाँ अब कोई रोल नहीं है. अगर हमारे पास IFSC आ गया तो अब सारा का सारा रोल एटलीस्ट इन दिस IFSC सेंटर ये वहां का होता है. हाँ, अगर कोई बैंक ऑलरेडी डोमेस्टिक मार्केट में है और वो अपनी एक ब्रांच IFSC में खोलना चाहते हैं तो RBI की परमिशन लेना इट्स मैंडेटरी. बट देन कितनी मिनिमम रिक्वायरमेंट है कैपिटल की जिसको मेंटेन करना है, दैट इज 20 million US dollar. So therefore option number 2, 3, 4, 5 they are incorrect. Only option number 1 is correct. इंडियन बैंक्स चाहे वो पब्लिक सेक्टर के हो, मतलब एसबीआई भी खोल सकता है या फिर प्राइवेट सेक्टर हो, दे आर ऑथराइज्ड टू डील इन द फॉरेन एक्सचेंज. And foreign banks, they already having a presence in India, they are permitted to set up an IFSC banking unit. Eligible banks who are interested in setting up of IBUs will be required to obtain prior permission from the RBI for opening an IBU under section 23 of Banking Regulation Act. याद रखना किस सेक्शन के अंदर, section 23 of Banking Regulation Act. The domestic banks, they have to take the prior approval of RBI. For Indian banks, the parent bank is required to provide a minimum capital requirement of US dollar 20 million or equivalent in any foreign currency it feels like, and it has to be maintained all time. For the foreign bank, again the parent bank must provide a minimum capital of US dollar 20 million or its equivalent in a foreign currency to its IBU, which must be maintained at all times again. Next question. Which of the following statement is false regarding the permissible activities and regulations for IBUs as outlined by RBI? Great. So IBUs, they are not permitted to accept fixed deposits from the non-banks. Financial institutions set up in an IFSC and recognized by the Government of India are treated as person resident in India under the FEMA regulations. Fixed deposit accepted by IBUs from non-banks can be repaid prematurely within the first year under normal circumstances. So if I talk about all these directions, these are very मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा in-depth directions है. Though I don't feel so वो इतना मुश्किल पूछेंगे, but then all the statements are incorrect. But then let's quickly see, क्योंकि IBU से related easy information वो already पूछ चुके हैं. अब पूछना होगा तो हो सकता है एक level और depth में जाए. Let's have a look. IBUs, they can open foreign currency current accounts for units operating in IFSCs and for non-resident institutional investors for the purpose of trading and investment activity. तो IBU जो है फॉरेन करेंसी अकाउंट किसके लिए खोल सकते हैं? फॉर आइदर ट्रेडिंग और इन्वेस्टमेंट एक्टिविटी ऑफ दीज NRI non-resident institutional investors. These IBUs can accept fixed deposits from the non-banks, but such deposits cannot be repaid prematurely within the first year. अगर एक बार फिक्स डिपॉजिट इनके पास आ गया तो पहले साल में they cannot be repaid back unless and until these FDs are used as collateral for obtaining credit from IBUs or they are used as a margin deposits in favor of an exchange. कई बार क्या होता है, जैसे आपने बुलियन परचेज किया तो उसके टाइम पे there is a margin that is required. If in case you are keeping that FD as a margin deposit और मान लो चाहिए होता है उस margin की requirement में, तो फिर definitely they can be repaid prematurely. Until if this scenario is not there, तो पक्का FD एक साल से पहले तो आपको prematurely return नहीं होगी. That's all from my side for the day. If you feel that the session was helpful, you can hit the like button. You can also tell me in the comment section if you feel that more such sessions should be there in the coming days. Anything else if you want to ask, you can ask. With regarding to the question of IBUs, देखो ऐसा कुछ फिक्स नहीं है total number of IBUs in IFSC, क्योंकि वो तो चेंज होता रहता है ना. और अभी रिसेंट जो उनका दिसंबर मंथ का लाइक IFSC जो है अपना एनुअल रिपोर्ट दिसंबर में निकालती है. सो वी डू नॉट नो हाउ मेनी यूनिट्स आर देयर एज ऑफ नाउ. दैट डिपेंड्स अपॉन द सिनेरियो व्हिच इज देयर, बट डेफिनेटली हर साल कुछ ना कुछ तो बढ़ ही रहा होगा. मोर बैंक्स विल बी कमिंग अप.